This video will contain spoilers from the off, so remember, you've been warned. The Crowded Room is back this week with the 4th episode of the show. In the first 3 episodes, which were all released last week, we saw that Danny was caught for firing at his stepfather after returning to the ghost house. However, in episode 4, we saw Danny heading towards London to find his father, which was the main focus, where it seemed as though the uncertainty of his reality and what he was witnessing was becoming more and more present. So with that, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is the Crowded Room episode 4 ending explained. This episode opened up with Danny dreaming whilst on a plane, which I thought was particularly interesting. He was dreaming about several years ago when he was younger, when he was grabbing a hold of some fireflies. This could be pre or post what happened with his brother Adam. Adam is an individual that we know is no longer around in the present day due to him dying. I think that the importance of this time being the first thing that we saw and the subject of what Danny was dreaming about shows us that around the time of the death of his brother, it could be where the source of his issues originated from, and where the condition that it seems as though he has, DID, ultimately stemmed from. We don't know when his brother died, but when we see the memories that are inside of Danny's mind when thinking about his brother, they're all from when he was a lot younger. So this makes me think that the fact that Danny has created all of these alternative people that he believes are real, and individuals that all hold some importance in his life, it could be because it happened as a form of a coping mechanism for him when he lost his brother. The bond must have been extremely strong between the pair, so it would have most definitely impacted him. Or it could be the complete opposite. Adam never actually existed and was the start of his condition, but I guess we'll see more into that as time goes on. Now let's discuss the ending. As we embarked onto the ending of the episode, we saw that Raya was heading back into the interview room at the start of a new day. We saw that throughout the entirety of the episode, it was focused on Danny being in London, meeting with his father's long-term friend who was also familiar with Yitzhak, who was called Jack. Whilst we were watching the episode play out in real time, there was no reason for us to think that Jack was an individual that didn't actually exist. It only entered our mind when Danny went in to meet with Reggie, an individual who apparently owed money to Danny's father for the job that he was on, which caused his father to need to flee before collecting the reward. Reggie had no clue who Jack was, nor his father, and then once Danny was thrown out, Jack was gone. Due to that, Danny retraced his steps so that he'd be able to find him, and he met with all of the people that would have seen Jack throughout the past couple of days, such as the person who worked in the fish and chip shop, the person at the hotel, and also the individual who worked at the bar. However, the bartender looked as though he was going to call the police if Danny didn't leave. There was an incident that occurred when we saw Jack confront somebody who called Danny a slur. However, if the condition that Danny has is real and apparent at that moment in time, Jack might not actually exist, which would mean that it's most likely that Danny was the person who got into a confrontation at the bar, hence why the bartender had a frosty reaction. With Raya walking into the interview room and Jack being sat there in the exact same clothing that he was in when Danny was telling the story of London, it makes me think that she's sitting there talking to a version of Danny's mind, an individual that Danny perceives to be at that moment of time. Almost like in the movie Split, how Kevin has all of these different personalities. For example, one moment he could be Dennis, then Patricia, and then Barry. This is like what Danny is doing, and he can't help it. This is also why his memories aren't 100% clear inside of his mind, and why he was able to say what Jack said on the phone to Yitzhak, 2 people who he was basically conversing with inside of his own mind. So it's clear to see that Danny is a deeply troubled individual. It's still not 100% confirmed if Yitzhak and Ariana are made up inside of his head, as Raya was questioning if he killed them when he returned back to the ghost house after coming back from London, especially considering that they're no longer around and are untraceable. So I guess that's something that we'll delve into more as the episodes go on. Overall review. I thought this episode was okay. I felt like the first 3 episodes were a lot better than this 4th installment. It felt quite isolated and like the plot didn't really develop that much. It was significantly shorter than the previous episodes as well, so it didn't allow us to have as much time and space in the world. Going from basically 3 hours in the first week to 38 minutes in the next is a massive drop, and I think that's a large reason for the contribution of that slight disconnect. In terms of the performance, this was an episode where Tom Holland was on his own for a lot of it, and I feel as though he did a great job at carrying the role. You really do believe the lostness and emptiness that is present within him, and the fear that he had embedded due to the apprehension of being caught. I would say that it is feeling a little slow at the moment, and I almost feel as though we're being led down a path of believing that he has a condition where he has multiple personalities inside of his head, so the reveal is something that may not feel as strong when it does happen, unless they're planning something different with the direction of the show. I'd be open to that. I'm fine with being led one way and then having the rug pulled from underneath me and it being something completely different. I am enjoying the show, but I preferred seeing Danny talking about his time at school, his detachment from a lot of people, and also his home life. So I hope that we get to see some more of that in the next episode. I feel we're going to unearth how Danny became the person that's sitting there in front of us, and that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing. There's a lot of mystery that's surrounding his brother that's no longer around, called Adam, so I'm looking forward to seeing what happened there and why his father is no longer around. I believe this Jack person could have been created as a way of justifying his father's departure. When Danny was around him, it was almost like his dad was on these secret missions, so there's a story that he probably told himself as a kid in order to come to terms with it a bit more. With the next episode being called Savior and being solely written by the person who wrote the first 3 on their own, Akiva Goldsman, and also being directed by the same director who did the first 2, I have high hopes for this next episode, as the first ones did really stand out and that partnership worked really well. Jason Isaacs did a really good job at playing Jack in this episode too. It was rather convincing and had the British charm that was needed to pull off the role. One character that I'm a little underwhelmed by at the moment is Raya, who's played by Amanda Seyfried. She's not had that much screen time, but what little screen time she's had, it tends to be overshadowed by the strength and weight of Tom Holland's performance. There's 2 different dynamics there, I know that, but I would say that I hope that we get to see more from her as the season goes on, because I know that she has a lot to offer. I'm going to be sticking with this show as I feel it does have potential. I know there's been a lot of negativity around the first couple of episodes, but I'm highly optimistic that this show will have a twist and an ending that will be worth the reward. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So, there you have it, The Crowded Room Episode 4 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.